Welcome back, everyone, to Black Bull Podcast. Today, we got a special episode and a special guest. We got the one and only RX SKULLS back.
Hello.
So, what RX did recently is he had his solo show, and I went ahead and made a video about it, which by the time this is up, it'll be uploaded and visible to the public on the Black Bull Podcast YouTube channel. But I wanted to bring him back to really talk about his process, because I know there's a lot of artists out there who want to do shows and aren't really sure where to start. So, yeah, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
You started a year ago.
We did. We talked about it over a year ago, and I think I nonchalantly was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start my show, planning pretty soon. And I think a lot of people thought I was crazy for taking an entire year, and I think the best thing I could have done was work that far in advance as if the show was happening a month away, right? And maintaining that grind, because if anyone's thrown any kind of event, whether it be a group show or a solo show or curated a show, I think that the one thing that they'll tell you is that it's just way more work than they could have ever imagined in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think with most artists, the more time you give yourself, the better. It also, there are always things that pop up and become, more or less important as time goes on, and things that you want to add. And just the more time you can give yourself, the better the overall event's going to be. And I knew I wanted to bite off just so much, given that I'd never done a solo show, that I would just need that extra time. And my whole process in general is so convoluted. I knew that the show would be just as complicated as like creating one piece of art, because we talked last time about how do I create a piece of art.
Yeah.
I start here, and then I do 10 steps, and then a week later I've got my one piece of art. It's the same thing for the show. It was like I knew that I needed to move 30 different projects forward at once in a slow pace, in order to make that deadline.
Yeah, because you had a lot of pieces.
Yes.
And they all kind of had their own like fun and flair to it. I thought the tins was a totally unexpected thing.
The little the metal tins.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Well, and I think that making sure that that I was maintaining interest in the project and wasn't getting bored was key. And so the tins were a perfect example of something that just made no sense with the overall theme of the show. And there wasn't a theme of the show. Let me be clear about that too. Like, people try and figure that out. Like, there just wasn't. I was just doing everything I was excited about during that year. I was just pushing that forward. And that was something that just fell into my lap. I was, I was doing a lot of work in my yard, and I was seeing like old rusted metal fence posts and things. And I was thinking like, how could I get a cool effect like this? And I was at the sign shop, and I found these brand new, stainless steel, like old school looking, but brand new oil cans. So that's kind of where that came from. I was like, I'm going to put some decals on this, and I'm going to rust the hell out of them, and then I'm going to remove the decals. And that tiny little part of that one of the show, that one little project, it was funny because a lot of people reacted really favorably to that particular little set of pieces. And but it was nothing that I knew that I was going to do ahead of time.
Yeah. So you also have like a pretty immense background with printmaking in general, and I'm sure that helps when preparing a show.
Right.
But for someone who isn't as savvy with it, I mean, how would they best communicate to a print shop and give them direction?
Yeah. So if handmade prints are your thing, and you're looking to, for me, I have nothing against digital at all, but for me, because I can make it, it's like, why wouldn't I make it? And I like the hand done, aesthetic. And so, for me, it was also very cost effective to be able to do it myself.
Yeah.
But for other people, it's time is a huge factor, because screen printing is it can be such a lengthy process. It's, it's giving enough time to do something like that, but also how can you utilize screen printing or the printmaking the type of printmaking that you're doing, how can you utilize it in the best way, right? So how can I take screen printing and really let that substrate and that method shine, and not just when you could have just done like a digital print, right? So the same thing with like pressure and letterpress, right? You know, being able to see the pressure of the print, and with screen printing, being able to like play with inks in a way that you just can't do digitally, and play with registration and playing with your substrate, your type of paper and such. So I would say doing your research and finding out the full potential of that particular process and letting that shine and not hiding it.
Yeah, it just seems so important. Yeah, because in the doc, I was with you in the print shop.
Yeah.
And just seeing all that, because I have some history with it, but you just forget a lot about, like, the registration mark. I forget all about that.
Yeah.
And,
right.
yeah. And then on top of that, how you framed it also was not, it was completely unexpected. I didn't know you were going to go to that extent.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
But it was pretty interesting.
Little surprises like that. I think that's what, you know, I could have done the show in 6 months instead of a year if I hadn't gone to like certain lengths. And the frames are a perfect example of that. I have played with spray painting custom frames for pieces before, but I'd never gone to that length before, where I'm matching colorways specifically to each print. And that just little extra bit of effort just makes that piece that much more interesting. It makes the show look so much more cohesive in an aesthetic manner. And it just, and you know, people end up with a more more fun piece too. And you know, that's kind of my it's always been my way. You know, if you look at a design of mine, especially the advertisement, the fake ad series, everything's very cluttered. It's very, you know, on purpose. And that's how I wanted the show to look. I wanted it to look very overwhelming and cluttered, and allow for people to be there for a solid 3 hours and continue seeing new things. And so that was a big part of, you know, painting the frames was a huge part of that. How can I just go over the top in ways that are unnecessary? You know? Right. Yeah. But that I find necessary.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of your thing, though. Like you put a lot of work into something that other people just might neglect.
Right. Exactly. But for the few people who do appreciate it, that's so satisfying to me. You know, so it makes it all worth it.
Totally. Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you about the show? Because I mean, it was your first solo show.
Right.
I mean, you've been a part of other shows, but doing it on your own, anything that surprised you?
Yeah, I think that I thought that by giving myself a full year, I would be more prepared than I was. But just like any event, I mean, even if you give yourself, I think even if I gave myself 2 years, I still would have been at the last minute for a lot of different parts of the show. And I think the fact that I only had a week to install the show, which again might sound like a lot, but for a year's worth of work, and the fact that I wanted to just cover the gallery walls in more than just art, but installations and murals and decals, the 1 week that I thought was going to be kind of a breeze of hanging out and putting things up, it was very stressful. And I think if I could have had a couple weeks, it would have been great, but or just had more help.
Yeah.
And I think I underestimated how much help I would need to actually install the show. And you know, it was amazing because I had a lot of friends come out and help me. I had you know, my dude Winston the Whale, my dude Pono, iDrop, of course, Lame and Miss Two Fake, and I mean, I just had a lot of people. I'm forgetting people. I apologize. But they came out and they helped me paint murals, and they helped me, you know, tack up art, and they helped me move tables around and unpack boxes and set up the merch table. And then, of course, I had all the people who helped me run the event the day of. You know, you were there doing video, and we had, you know, people working the merch table, someone putting wristbands on people's wrists as they came in to the show for absolutely no reason.
I love that.
It was great. People were coming back in, like, showing their wrists, like, hey, I got one, and there's just no reason for it at all. It was brilliant. It was super funny. And you know, but there was just so many people, and I think that that was a big one for me. I just didn't realize how much it was going to take to put everything that I had organized and thought about over a year and just like put it in there and make it look good.
Yeah.
You know, it was really to the last minute for sure.
And the installation of you cutting up stickers.
That was great because I did not know how well it was going to go over.
Yeah.
It was totally like a funny thing that I thought would be silly and entertaining and interactive because you'll see in the video there's the fake me in the cage, and there's about 6 years of sticker trimmings that they're buried in, and they're watching some of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
They watched What We Do in the Shadows, Swiss Army Man, and Beetlejuice. And there was 5 different people playing me. There was Strange Holes, there was Lame, there was Pono, Ace Troy, and Kid Nichols. Mm-hmm. And they would just be cutting stickers, and there was a hole in the side of the cage where you could stick your arm in and grab one of those stickers that was being cut. And it was a white on clear skull, and it said, "Stole this skull out of cage from a fake ARC SKULLS."
Yeah.
And so again, very meta, which is very me. And I'd say like 80% of the footage that people took from the show and tagged me in on Instagram was that cage.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, people loved it.
Yeah.
It was great. And I had people like I hid one of the art drops in that cage.
Oh.
So someone was like, I'd instructed whoever was in the cage to just not talk to anyone.
Yeah.
But like if someone asked like, "Hey, is the art drop in there?" They could do a little nod, like a little, "Hey, come in here." And sure enough, they dove in and found the art drop in there, which was great. And then I had a few friends who like climbed the fence and jumped in and were just like having fun being buried in stickers in there for a while. And there was one particular story that I really, really loved, which was, and I hope this wasn't embarrassing for the person because I really loved hearing about it. But there's this older gentleman who came up, and Pono was playing me at the time, and they stuck their arm through the cage and they tapped him on the shoulder, and they just said some really kind, really nice words, complimentary, towards my project. Just like, "I really love what this is. This is so great. I love your project. Like, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it." And and Pono ended up taking one of the stickers and handing it to him so that he would read it, because he obviously hadn't read that it was a fake ARC SKULLS.
Right.
And he looked at it and he kind of like face palmed a little and was like, "Oh, like you got me," kind of a thing. And I just loved hearing all those little stories like that. It was just great. But that part of the show was a much bigger part of the show than I thought it was going to be, and that was fine by me. That was fun, super fun.
I thought it was funny when Lane was in there because he's like, what, 6'5" or something?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, and you have Strange Holes, who's like tiny and wiry, and you just had everybody was in there. Every kind of person was in there. It was great.
So I do remember in the whole process, you told me that like one of the toughest things about it was keeping it all a secret.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that was the toughest part.
Yeah, because you are very active on social.
Yes.
But you kept a lot of things quiet, and I think that added to the effect of when they got there, they're like, "Oh my God, like I haven't seen any of this."
That was so important to me. That was maybe the most important thing was, in my experience, social media has made people kind of apathetic towards art shows and a little more lazy towards art shows, in that they would be much more likely to stay home and watch the show unfold on social media or see the photos later than, go check it out. I mean, I get it. People are busy. They have work and they have social lives and they have responsibilities and kids. And so to get out for an evening, it's not as easy as it sounds for some people. And so for me to really jog people and like make a point of, "Oh, I got to get a babysitter for tonight," or, "Oh, I got to get work off for tonight," or, "I got to put this on my calendar," it was important for me to make it so that the people who were there seeing the show were the first ones to see that work.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I had been introducing it for an entire year, it would be stale. And people would be a lot less interested. And seeing it all firsthand all at once, too, would be overwhelming, I was hoping. So, seeing it sprinkled throughout a year is one thing, but seeing a year's worth of work all at once and being consumed by it and absorbing it all at once, that was really, a big point for me, for sure.
Yeah. And then also, and probably encourage a lot of people to travel in. And I know that I saw a lot of people who were from out of town, and it was cool. They had cruise shirts.
Yeah.
Like they were their own cruise. And I was like, oh man, because they came from Albuquerque. That was one.
There was a big crew, Metal the Store, my guy Metal from Albuquerque, and he surprised me with his entire crew. And it was a big crew. I want to say 7 or so people. And they jumped in a van and they all drove up, and they surprised me at the show. They bought up a bunch of art. They even came when we were filming and taking down the show the next day, and they came and they helped me for like 2 hours, and they probably saved me 6 hours worth of work, just that big team of people helping me take art down and everything. And it was brilliant. It was like the amount of support, the fact that, you know, I'm overwhelmed already and grateful, and that people, like I said, would take time out of their lives to come and just for me, just to see my art, who are in town, but for people to like buy a plane ticket, which people did. People came in from Chicago and Philly, and people, you know, other artists in the scene, or people who'd been following me, and people drove from a long way. They flew from a long way, and I cannot, no words, you know, like I can't thank them enough. Like it just means so much. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I remember before that we opened up the floodgates,
Yeah.
there was like a line around the building, like down 82nd.
Right.
I was like, man, this is great.
I had no idea until after the fact, and the first time I saw that was in the video footage, which was so great. I mean, I didn't know, because it was like an hour. It was about an hour before the event, and there were maybe a few people outside, and I was kind of doing the last touches, and then about half hour before the show, I couldn't see the end of the line.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, like really taken aback. And then I found out later it wasn't just to the street. It was like it had been wrapped around the building. And I mean, just wow, just really, really amazing.
I remember when I caught on to that a little bit, I was like, I gotta get that shot. So I was like running into the road with my camera, like dodging traffic during rush hour. I was like, I want the shot. I'm gonna get the shot.
Much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, so you had a lot of help, so that's one thing people should keep in mind. Especially with like hanging. I feel like that's where
that was a huge one. I thought that the paintings were just going to go up quick, but that was a huge one. I was very mistaken on that, like hanging work. And I know there's a lot of people watching this right now who are like, yeah, duh, you know, but like that's just not something I was super experienced with, you know. So that was huge, you know, giving yourself plenty of time for that. I'd say documentation is another big one, though. Like, you know, having you work with me was completely invaluable. I mean, it was important to me, if I was going to spend a year on a show that was going to last 4 hours, I wanted to be able to share that process with people who couldn't make it. And I think for me, when I look at art and appreciate art, the process is almost as interesting as the finished product. And I found with my own experience with social media, people love to see behind the scenes. And so it was really important for me to have that documentation of the before, the during, and the after. So, you know, I was stoked when you said that you were interested in helping me out, because it was impossible to document everything, because, you know, in this 2019 for me, it was sell a house, buy a house, have a baby, and build a studio from scratch, plus have a solo show. So I was fitting in art any which little tiny space that I could. You know, it wouldn't be like, hey, can you come over? I'm about to carve a block for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's just not going to work. But I thought we did great, you know, picking some very specific parts of the process to document, and it just came together beautifully. So
yeah, that was kind of how we did it. I think we chose maybe 4 or 5 days that I would come by that were more monumental than others, visually at least too. And
then you were there a lot when we were setting stuff up.
Yeah.
And of course the whole show and after. So
yeah.
It was important to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good time, man. I did think it was funny how how the movie ends.
Yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't be saying it. Well, no, the idea of like.
Yeah. I feel like they'll probably watch the video first.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll listen to this afterwards.
Yeah. So you painting over your own paint, when in reality it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all those years of people painting over yours, like you had your show and you had to paint over.
I had to buff my own shit.
Yeah. Buff your own paint.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny too, because people were coming by picking up their art the next day, because the way I had it set up was it wasn't a how do they call it when you purchase the art and you pick it up right then and there during the show.
Oh, right.
There's a name for it. But anyway, it wasn't that kind of show. I wanted to make sure the show was intact for those full 4 hours.
Yeah.
So people could stay the whole 4 hours and then pick up their art that they purchased at the end of the night, or they could come back the next day. So a lot of people would come for 2 hours, put their names on pieces, pay, and then come the very next day and pick it up. And when they were coming by the next day, they were seeing me and my friends buff all the murals. What are you doing? And it's like, well, you know, it had its 4 hours. It lived, you know, like, because we just finished those murals, and then there was the show, and then it was like 12 hours later. cover them up.
Yeah.
It's just like street art, right? It's kind of a
Yeah.
beautiful metaphor. It's very, very, very ephemeral.
Yeah. So I remember at the show you did have one person who was in charge of. I don't want to say like being like the money collector because that sounds awful.
Well, the gallery curator, Jessie, who was brilliant. She basically had everything really well organized and on a clipboard, and she was the one to find. And merch was handled by a whole team of people.
Yeah.
Kind of spearheaded by Miss Too Fake and Lame, who work with me on all the gang runs, and they were doing that. But we also had other people cycle into that as well. And then Jessie did all the art sales, the fine art sales rather. So any of the lights. From the Lightroom, any of the screen printed posters or the collaborations went through her. So she was just like running around like crazy. And thankfully, Kitska was helping her for a solid few hours of the night too. So that was great. Yeah, Kitska came in on the clutch and really helped us a lot too. So.
Yeah, it seemed like that could be a really overwhelming job.
Yeah, it seemed like it. She seemed pretty stressed out.
yeah, but she also... It didn't seem like she took shit from anybody.
No, she held her own.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
She handled it. And you kind of knew like she'll be all right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I wasn't that worried about her. I knew she was gonna be good, and she was. Yeah.
But the value of having that kind of person there,
it's important. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to just enjoy the show, and if you wanted to find out who I was at the show, you could find it out pretty easily. I wasn't hiding from people. I wanted to enjoy it. The last show I had that was even close to this was a 2-man show, and it was in like 2012, and I didn't even go to it because I was that paranoid. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm faceless. I'm anonymous. I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
And I regretted that a little. I had a friend there doing photography for it, my friend Tomas, but and that was great to have that footage. But I definitely wanted to be there this time. So,
yeah. I remember before it started, you were like, "If I get arrested, get it on camera."
Yeah, I was like, "Don't stop filming."
Yeah, and I was telling people like, if the cops come, just tell me, tell me first.
Right. Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, so you had a lot of good help. Working with the curators, you chose the space. You picked the space you wanted to be in.
Yeah.
Which was, I didn't even know that existed.
It was a cool space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very reasonable, more than reasonable commission to the gallery, and all that money from the gallery from Remedy Gallery went straight back into more shows. So that was cool. It's like a nonprofit, and it's a cool space because there's lots of little nooks and crannies, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that in the video. It's not just a box like a lot of galleries are.
Right.
It's got a lot of different walls and and we had when I saw the room, the enclosed room in the gallery, that's when I was like, okay, I got to do these lights and this light installation and just keep it dark in here and let them, blink away. And so that was a really fun aspect to the show as well, and I'm glad that I fleshed that out.
Yeah, the whole light project is nothing that I've ever seen you do before, and
it was brand new.
Yeah, and that was wild.
Thanks. People had fun with that, and I'm glad that I tried to sell them for as low of a price as I could, because I did commission these really super talented artists to make them for me, and so I wanted to make sure that I could cover their costs. But that was my main concern with those pieces, because I love the idea of those being in people's houses and flashing away, and a local business, PD Exchange, grabbed one up and they have it hanging in their shop on Mississippi.
Oh, really?
And it's on a timer, so even at night they shut all the lights off, it's like glowing in there.
That's cool.
It's really cool. So I really enjoyed that part of the show.
Yeah, it was a cool effect.
Yeah.
Because you would see, even though you walk in, you'd see this like dark room with like flashing lights. Like, okay, what is going on in there?
Right.
Is that like the party room or something? Like, what's going on?
It was important to keep that one a surprise. Yeah, I really wanted people to walk in and, like you said, kind of see a hint of like, what is this, like a disco room at our school show? Like, what's going on? And we had specific music playing in there too.
Yeah.
Too for.
Another thing that I don't know if everyone catches on to it except for the true street artists, but you had fake street signs.
Yeah.
You put a couple outside, you put one inside, just because that's what street art is.
Well, yeah, I did that for a few reasons. I knew that, another fun aspect of art shows, not only to get people there, but to keep people engaged and give them something to do while they're there, is, interactive elements. And interactive elements was a huge proponent for this particular show for me. And setting up those street signs, which I sunk in concrete buckets, I wanted people to be able to leave their mark, like a guest book of sorts.
Yeah.
And then also, as people trickle in, they could be like, who's here tonight? Yeah. Because there's no way to know. You go to a show like that and you have no idea who's there because everyone's anonymous. And so you walk into the show as a photographer or as a newer street artist, and you're like, oh my God, they're here and they're here and they're here. And because it was a one night show, those were blank in the beginning of the night.
Yeah.
Who came through.
They were covered.
And they were covered. Yeah. It was great. It was super fun. And there was, of course, a little bit of a manipulative aspect to them too. I just wanted the gallery to stay nice. I wanted the bathrooms of the gallery to stay nice. For them to be, for these galleries, not just Remedy Gallery, any gallery, for them to continue working with street artists need to realize that they have to respect those spaces and not crush them like you would an old bar bathroom, because the leaseholders or the landlords or building owners, they don't understand street art like the person renting out the gallery does, and they're not going to appreciate their mirror getting scribed, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so giving everyone an avenue to express themselves and leave their mark, like, here it is, rather than like leave it up to chance in that, vandalism would happen in this particular space, was important too.
Yeah. And then the other one was the chain link fence. Yeah. With the metal signs and like the wire cutters.
That one was fun. It backfired on me though.
Oh no.
I don't know if I told you about that. Yeah, so it was funny because that you'll see that in the video too, but there was a chain link fence installed on the wall, and then I had screen printed these silly electrical signs, like warning signs that you'd see on fences or electrical boxes. And I installed them all, and then I had hung the snips. And it said up top, it said, do you want one of these signs? Something like that. Like, want one of these signs? Got to put in work, snip it off yourself, and purchase it at the merch table. And what people read was, want one of these signs? Snip it off. Take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I found out later was that no one had bought them. They just took them with them. So I did a post, and I was like, and I explained how it worked, and I, not knowing that people hadn't bought them, because I hadn't run through all the numbers of stuff. And I had like 3-4 separate people DM me and go, wait, you're supposed to buy those? Oh no, I'm so sorry. God. I just took it with me. So those people actually PayPal'd me the money for them, which was really nice. But I'm sure like 80% of them just like kind of went into bags, and that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I guess that's a fallback on that one.
Yeah. It was fun. I'm no regrets on doing that one. But I
did notice on the sticker wall that people were just kind of ripping off the wall.
Yeah, that was funny too. That was another one that I thought I had thought through, but I apparently hadn't. Was I had the whole wall, and the idea was that you would peel a sticker off of the wall, because all those sticker sheets were tacked to the wall. You'd peel one off and have an unstuck sticker that you have to put on something. So I was expecting people to like cover their water bottle or their binder or their laptop that they had in their backpack or whatever, put it on their shirt. I expected a lot of that. And then I was expecting them to unpeel one of their stickers and stick it on the wall for someone then to take off too. But yeah, you're right. Everyone just started tearing them off the wall and taking them with them home.
Well, it was a snowball effect, because like one person was like, "Oh, I don't want to stick it on there yet," and they rip it off, and then like next thing, like half the wall's missing.
The whole wall's down. Yeah, it was funny, and that was just one of those. Yeah, I just that was. It was funny. I totally didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So just the whole like series alone, the Your SKULLS series, I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because and how would you say you came up with that idea, or was that like a happy accident, or?
It was both. It was a happy accident, and it was something that just kind of evolved. And so initially, this was years and years ago, probably like 2011 or so, and I don't know exactly how the idea came to me, but I just always, studying graphic design, I really like isotype design, the really simple graphics of like the walking person or the bathroom sign or the like just how little information you have, but what a gestalt kind of effect it has on you to tell you exactly what it's trying to tell you, right?
Yeah.
And so the wash your hands was the one that I've always liked. The hands, you can do it hundreds of different ways. You got the bubbles, and and people are gonna think I'm crazy for explaining this and saying that it's funny, but like that's part of graphic design that I loved. You have all these little wash your hands graphics, and I thought how weird and funny and stupid would it be if I did my own kind of culture jamming, as Ron English would say, the like hiding of sneaking of street art into mainstream usage of like for in this instance signage. So I thought I'll hide a skull in the hands instead of a bar of soap, and I'll just wash your skulls, and I'll hide these in here and no one will even notice, but the few people who do, that's funny to me. And so I did the wash your skulls for years and not trying to expand on it or not thinking about that. And then I think one day I was just like, what if I do, dry your skulls, so I can put that on the dryer of the bathroom too. Yeah. And then what about a wipe your skulls, and I can put that on the toilet paper dispenser. And then what about it? And then it was just went out of control, and it was like, oh, what about extinguish your skulls? And I'll make fire extinguisher stickers that can go on the fire extinguisher. But a big one was like, I want to make stickers for specific places, and they only make sense on that place. And I think that's something that people are definitely experimenting with. I think Skull Phone is really good at that. He'll do specific electrical sign stickers or gas pump stickers or something where they only really go on that spot and they ride forever because you don't really notice it unless you know to look for it.
Yeah.
So that was that project came out of those things, and then I had so many designs, but I didn't feel like they were strong enough individually to be their own pieces. So that's why I combined all of those into a singular 24 by 36 screen print. So you could kind of, the power of it and the humor of it is stronger, I think, when they're all together than they were individually.
But you also had some like massive pieces, like some bigger than this. It was big, huge screen prints.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I was surprised. I was like, man, that's really amazing looking. And
that was another big surprise that I wanted to have for people, is getting away from my normal size of screen printing, which I had been doing for so long. I was like, it's time for me to branch out. And there was a huge help from Austin of Tour Print, Genuinely Whatever. He allowed me to come in and basically rent him for the day, and I mean, I traded him some posters and some we did some great trade, and he really helped me out, and he does beautiful work, and he let me use his giant press. He has a auto clamshell, which we feature in the video as well, and we ran those posters together, and it was super fun to see everything in such a larger size. And I got the opportunity to run not just those fine art posters, but we were like, well, if everything's set up, we're throwing copy paper under there, and we're going to make giant wheat paste too. So I ended up coming away from the show with like all of this, ammunition for future trips and stuff too, which was fun. But,
so what do you have next now? Now that you I feel like it's a big breath of fresh air once you're done with your solo show. I mean, I know you're probably not going to do another one anytime soon, but
Right. So, I think having put so much time and effort into this one project, a lot of people ask me, like, how do you feel now? Like, are you depressed? You don't have any big thing to work toward anymore? Like, it's over now. And for me, I think I had my shop to go to after this. And if anyone's been following me on social media, they'll see that, like, all my attention has been on my shop over the last number of months as well, 6 months, super hard. And, so inspections and building out and settling in, and we still have so much to do. So, being able to go from one big project to another big project, I didn't feel any weird kind of, sadness in finishing the show. I felt really satisfied in finishing the show. And so, my biggest project since then has definitely been, how do I get my new and permanent screen printing shop up and running, settling in, building out custom features. I have so many awesome friends coming through and doing murals in there right now. As far as art projects go, I have a show I'm curating next November, which I'm excited about. I won't say too much more about that quite yet. But as far as solo shows go, I've joked with everyone that, I'll do them every 10 years, but I don't think that's a joke. I think I genuinely will probably only do them every 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's totally reasonable to anybody who's thrown a show like that before. I'm going to need that much time to kind of let the PTSD rain
Right.
away, and
Yeah.
so you'll definitely see me planning and helping to plan group shows.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be involved in shows as they come up, but I'm looking forward to just kind of pushing the new shop and just working on fun new mini projects with my overall ARC SKULLS project as they come to me. You know, I'm definitely not pushing anything. I pushed it for so long. I'm just kind of letting things come to me. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I know that like a lot of street artists don't really get the opportunity to do a gallery show, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, saying, you know, that that's just not really part of the culture.
It's becoming more and more. Yeah, but for a long time there, it was very difficult to find space. And so we would have to be really creative with space and rent space. And there are more opportunities arising now, which is great. And a lot more galleries, local and non-local, who are finding value in street art and recognizing that there is interest out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so much work that, you know, there's also a lot less people willing to spearhead the projects because they just, you know, they'd rather be working on their own project, or, you know, they'd rather have time to relax at the end of the day rather than stressing over a new show that's, you know, going on. So.
And why do you think galleries pushed back on it so hard in the beginning or the early days? Do you think they just didn't really get what was going on?
I think that for sure. I think that galleries are businesses and they have to make money to survive. And, you know, when you're a gallery space and you're in a prime location of Portland, you're paying, you know, how many grand a month just to survive, not to mention, you know, and that's just for utilities and for your rent, your lease, not to mention your own cost of living and materials to, you know, paint and things and postcards for the show. And, you know, they have to have some kind of guarantee that they're going to make a certain amount of money so they can survive. And I get that. So I think there wasn't quite enough faith in the beginning there. It was like, well, yeah, these people have stickers all over the city, but can they sell art? Can we like make enough money to keep the lights on, you know? And so I think more, you know, social media is probably the main proponent of this, but like the fact that people can share it and enjoy it and it's getting out there more and people are more cognizant of the culture and the community and people are able to make a living off of it more now. And it's just exploded. It's a lot more conceivable to these galleries now that they can feature it and it makes sense for them to do that too. I don't want to say it's all about money for these galleries. It's not. But at the same time,
it's a business.
You got to survive. Yeah. You got to pay your rent. You know, you got to pay for your grocery bills and stuff.
I think there's a lot of people that contribute to that, like Portland Street Art Alliance has probably helped out.
Huge,
at least in Portland, you know.
Absolutely.
But then also, I mean, of course, the like high fructose and but that's really, they're always targeting that community itself, and that's why I think Portland Street Art Alliance, they're kind of making it more accessible to everybody.
Yeah, there's definitely like local businesses and stuff too that whether they know it or not, they're really helping people out, like Interurban, you know, by allowing their outside wall to get.
They allow that?
Well, I don't think they have the legal ability to say hit it up, but they're not buffing it.
Right.
When they could be. They're not calling the city on us. They're letting it happen because people love it. You know, people go in, patrons go in. I know for a fact patrons go in and they talk to the bartender and they say, man, we love this wall. It's always changing. Every time we come here, there's new art on it. We love checking it out. It's good for business. Yeah. And by allowing that art to stay up there and not buffing over it, they are helping the scene. And there's places like one of my favorite places in, Philly, for example, Tattooed Mom. Like they're a street art bar, and everything from the pool tables to the taps are hit up with stickers and street art, and that's a huge, pull for them, and it's hugely great for the scene. PD Exchange here on Mississippi Street, they vend for every street artist in Portland and beyond, and just like giving space like that and supporting local artists is it just uplifts the entire scene, and it just gets it more and more recognized, more and more appreciated, so that again galleries and other people will give more opportunities. Well,
I think it's like really encouraging for the artists to be more recognized like that, like with PD Exchange and everything. Like I know you drop in there and then Like I didn't know that that's what it was on the inside. I'm like recognizing it. I'm like, oh my God, they're selling now. Like that's good. Like if you want to see the artists that you enjoy actually continue to make a living off of that, or at least try.
Absolutely.
Because before that, it's like, well, if you slap a sticker, I mean that's the cool part of it, but it'd be cool to make a living off your artwork.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a beautiful thing to be able to make art full time and pay your bills with it. And I think some people have a problem with that. They feel a little icky about it, and they shouldn't. You know, I mean, and I think it's different for all sorts of people. And, you know, when you have a full-time job and you're doing street art, you may feel one way, you know, and when you're trying to do art full-time, you will feel another way. And, you know, I don't think anybody should be shamed for, you know, making art for a living. I think it's great.
Do you think that's just like the street art mentality, that they have been doing this for so long as an illegal thing, that once people kind of find out how to make money off of it, that they have a little bit of resentment on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I do too in some way, I'll be honest with you. Like, for example, when I see new street artists come into the scene and they haven't even really gotten up yet, and they haven't really learned the etiquette, and they haven't collaborated, and they haven't traded, and they haven't, you know, really fleshed out their project yet, but they're already got an online store like that, and they're already going to all the merch events, and they're already selling their stuff. It's like, it's, you know, and this is the old man in me, right, coming out, where it's like, you need to do this before you do that. But honestly, I think, you know, giving your project the time to evolve and grow, and learning more about what you want to do with this, and going to the core of street art, which is getting up and sharing your work with the public, you know, I really feel like doing that first and really digging in, and before you try and monetize, is so important. Because if you monetize right away, it starts to you know, take the project into a very specific direction. You know, you start doing things for sellability versus personal satisfaction.
It almost seems like a knockoff artist in a way.
So I mean, that's my, you know, old man advice for people. It's like, remember why you're doing it. You're doing it because it's fun. You're doing it because you want to get your art out there. You're doing it because you want to be part of this cool community. And then, great, if you want to make money off of it, awesome. Just don't let that drive your project.
I think there's a lot of realizing, especially like as an artist, it takes you so long to like figure out your style and have it be what you want to be. And to think that it's going to happen overnight, especially like just jumping into street art, that's not going to happen.
No, but people think it should, because the new generation is instant gratification, and it's social media, and it's being able to Google something in your car and finding out exactly where this one thing is, instead of, I mean, just, it's a different way of growing up. And I think that definitely trickles into how people think street art should be.
You know what would be interesting? And your instant gratification comment, like just hearing that, it's like, well, everything's so digital now. Wouldn't it be interesting if a street artist figured out how to do street art digitally and kind of, I mean, in a way, like a hack mobile ads? You know what I mean?
That would be brilliant. I would love that. When there are certain street artists who will tap in and hack into the construction signs, so the giant construction signs over, and they'll put their own messages in there, or jokes, or you know, even imagery, 8-bit style imagery and stuff, and that's so genius. But yeah, there are people too who will. It's pretty easy to fake being a street artist digitally too now, because you can make stickers and post pictures of them online, and no one's the wiser, and you're really just selling them, you know, versus like actually getting up and stuff too. So, you know, it can make it a little bit difficult to see people's intentions and stuff too through the digital kind of lens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people get really caught up with that too. I mean, it's like I was talking to SK about it, and even he was saying that I think if social media disappeared, there'd be a lot less art, a lot less artists, because everyone does it. If they have some talent, they're just doing it for the likes or doing it for some sort of monetization. But
I hate to agree, but I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it's a hard one to tackle, but I think that there's some truth to there. Yeah.
Anything new happening in the street art world?
Oh man, I've been kind of out of it lately. I hope that I hope my scene doesn't think I'm being like pretentious or like I'm better than this, because Jesus, I would love to be a part of everything that's going on right now. I've just been so dialed into kiddo and family and getting the shop built out. I'm really excited to get back into the scene and start going to sticker meetups again and start attending more shows and being a part of more things like that, because I miss it. I really miss it. So I think I would say give me a month or two and I'm back on my grind, my normal kind of grind. The shop will be settled in, and I'll be really excited to kind of touch base back with everybody, because there's some really cool stuff happening. And
well, you work hard.
I do,
and that's why I'm always eager to be there and like help you, because I like what you're doing, and you've definitely earned it. I mean, you've been doing it for over 10 years in Portland. I mean, you're like raising a family.
Yeah.
you have your shop that you've been building out, and then you put on a solo show, like all while that's happening. It's like, man, that's impressive.
I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know.
Well, and then I think it was right before, it was like the last day that you were setting up. You called me. You're like, "Hey, we're early. We're done early." And I've been around quite a few art shows, and I'm like, "You're the only person who has ever finished early."
I think it was, what was it, like an hour before or something, or maybe it was a couple hours.
It was a couple hours.
Yeah, and I just started pacing.
Yeah,
just like pacing around, and I was like, "Huh? Is there something I should be doing? I don't know. Are we good?"
Well, you prioritize it right, because you're like, first gotta do the murals. Like that's first,
right?
And then from there on out, like hanging up and.
I was very OCD and attentive about like the order of things, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's your show, man.
Yeah.
You can be like that.
I had to do it my way. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other messages to artists who might be considering to do A, street art, or B, a solo show? I mean, you got a lot of wisdom behind that mask.
I have a lot of trial and error, that's for sure. And I think a lot of people talk about doing shows and talk about getting into street art, and it's really easy to talk about it. And I know that's a cliche, but to say this, but it's just, you just have to do it. You just have to, at a certain point, you have to stop talking about it and you just have to jump in. And a lot of people use excuses like, I don't have enough money, or I don't have the ideas, or I don't have the character ironed down yet. Or it's like that comes with time, and you don't have to have a lot of money to throw a show, and you don't have to have your project completely conceptualized and dialed in to do it. It's just a matter of just giving it a try and giving it a go, and lean on your community and lean on your scene and your friends and just I did a lot of brainstorming and a lot of ideation and a lot of sketching things out and a lot of like free writing. And I think that's a really great way of, getting your ideas out there and trying to solidify what you want to do.
Free writing, huh?
I free write a lot. Yeah. I'll just open up a blank document and just like stream of consciousness kind of thing, where I just like, I'll just start typing, to myself as if I'm talking to myself. Like, what if I did this and then this, and what about this? And just that act of free writing for me brings out a lot of ideas. And, and identifying where you are most creative and banking off that. Like, for example, I get almost all my ideas when I'm driving in the car. So like, I'm really cognizant of that. If I have a long trip ahead of me, I've got my, my pad of paper in my wife's hand, and I will like, maybe she'll help me notate some things, or I'll have my Bluetooth on my phone, and I can, send myself an email with some notes of what I had an idea. But just being able to like free your mind enough to let those ideas come in and flow. And, but yeah, it comes down to just taking a chance and going for it, and giving yourself enough time to really vet it out.
Good stuff, man. Anything else you want to say, or?
Just a big thank you to everybody who helped me throw the show, you know, you included. There were so many amazing people who came through for me, and it was so effortless for them to help me. And that in itself was so, amazing to just have people just step out and, oh yeah, well, I'll come help you. Like, it wasn't even a big decision for them.
Yeah.
And that is just ultimate kindness that I hope I can repay.
Yeah. Well, I think something that I saw is that, like, if you show that you like care a lot about this, people will support you.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, and even if it's nothing in it for them, like, people just knowing who you are, like, every day that I came by, there was a whole new set of people helping out.
Yeah,
and I was like, and I know that they're busy,
Right.
I know Winston's busy.
Right. Oh yeah.
That dude's running his own business. He's there helping. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great, man. So
I know.
it was
amazing.
Well, it was a good show.
Thank you.
For anyone who wants to see the doc, go to the Black Bull Podcast YouTube page. I'll probably put it on Vimeo too. So
Great.
Yeah. Anyways, check it out.
Check it out. Leave some comments.
Yeah.
Like it for us.
Yeah. Share it to all your friends.
Yeah, please do. Awesome.
And that being said, thanks for coming by. Appreciate it.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah. And see you guys later.